This is a fundamental question. Nonetheless, it's one that needs to be asked. And it is, what is your motivation for learning this language? In the sense, I mean, like, what are you learning this language for? Now, the main thing that we all have in common, the main reason we are all learning languages, is for communication. However, when it comes to language, there are many forms of communication, many ways to communicate. And one of the ways is listening. Listening to somebody speak. Another way is reading. Another way is writing. And the other way is speaking. Now, in language learning, we kind of have two, I guess you could say, dominant philosophies or methodologies. And what you do is you could separate them like this. On this side, you have input, and on this side, you have output. Now, you have to think about this when you're deciding to learn a language. For instance, someone who wants to learn a dead language or an extinct language, such as Latin, I mean, with Latin, since there aren't really any native speakers around anymore, what they're probably going to focus on more is reading and writing, which is unique. It's a lot different than, for instance, if you were learning a living language. So that kind of throws the system out of whack because it's in the middle. It's both reading and writing. So you kind of have to have a mixture of input and output, and you have to have someone who's good at Latin maybe to help you with your writing. And I think that's one of the only ways you can get good at Latin is by doing lots of reading and then have people correcting your writing. But also when you're learning a language that is just a spoken language and doesn't even have a written form, you're going to be focusing on listening and speaking. For instance, I have a book on Gulf Arabic. Now, Arabic is kind of unique in the fact that it has a written form, which is different than the spoken form. The written form is called Fusha, or Modern Standard Arabic. And then you have lots of different spoken dialects which differentiate a lot. So like I know in Modern Standard Arabic or Fusha, they have what's called the adhan. And it's an Islamic term, and it means the call to prayer. So you have a muadhin, which is someone who calls the prayer, and you have the adhan, which is the call to prayer. But I believe it's in the Egyptian dialect, they say azan, like with a Z, azan, rather than adhan. In their spoken language, and they say muazzin, rather than muadhin. So, I mean, when you have a language that's only like a spoken language, if you're trying to learn colloquial Egyptian or Arabic or whatever, you're going to be focusing on listening and speaking. But then I guess when you look at all other languages, like Chinese, for example, let's say Mandarin Chinese, you're going to kind of almost have to decide if you want to focus on input or output. What helps you learn better? Writing and speaking? Listening and reading? What's your goal? Are you learning Chinese to read all of their classics and that type of stuff? And to be able to understand radio and videos? Then you're probably going to want to focus on input. Do you want to speak and have conversations with your Chinese friends, or you have a pen pal? You might want to focus on output. But if overall you want to just be generally good in the language, you're going to want to focus on everything. All of it. So, the way I see it, I don't know if you could really black and white divide everything up like that, like people try to do input, output, input, output. It's really just one big mash of everything. You can't, I don't see the point in categorizing everything like that. It's not that black and white.